So we're writing the thesis over again. So here's the fact that we brought in the reader, what the reader perceives. It's a little much. It's asking us to argue a little bit much. Different readers might perceive different things. It's just a little bit of a slippery slope. So I tweaked it a little bit. Although his first ode songs for a prelude acknowledges the atrocities of war. Whitman's use of line breaks, personification, and word choice conveys. So here conveys. So Whitman's use conveys. You want this to be singular. You don't want to put like word choice, personification, and line breaks. Conveys, because it's a little bit confusing. It's sort of you're helping the reader along. You're helping the reader of your essay not be confused, and you're also making sure that you're grammatically correct. So Whitman's use of these things conveys this. So you don't want to put line breaks before conveys. You want to put word choice. Whitman's use of line breaks, personification, and word choice conveys the poem's overwhelming emphasis on war's inherent ability to bring people together collectively and actively to fight and work toward a common goal. Because remember, they're collective. There's language that talks about collective. There's language that talks about them fighting as if it's a mere stage. It's just fake. It's just acting when they're at peace. But now they're active. They're out there, and then they're fighting. But also remember the nurses. The nurses, they're not fighting, but they're working toward a common goal. So let's cut this out. I think this is much better. So let's cut that out, and let's paste this in. And let's cut this out. Two spaces, and we're good. That's a good start. All right. So if we could think of a better way to talk about this essay without saying those words, then we'll do it. All right. So let's scroll up here. All right. I just want to copy this. I don't want to. Let's see. So let's copy this. All right. So now we're going to start writing the body. So let's go to. We're going to use poured out its myriad. That's going to be our first quote. Poured out its myriads. So with honest hum, I think that's a good line. Sometimes you're going to have long ones, and sometimes they're going to be really short. But I think that as long as you do a good job with. So if you're not going to talk about hive or hum, I guess you could talk about poured out its myriads. Our hive poured out its myriads. We could talk about that because we're talking about the city. I would actually say from the houses then and the workshops and through all the doorways. Yeah. And then that's the line break there. Leapt they, tumultuous and low, Manhattan army. Let's see. Update to more Joseph Low, Manhattan arming. And then you want to put, now different teachers have different like rules, you could say. Lines, sort of the lines here. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 to 25. No, 24 to 25. So you'll probably read in your class something that has the lines. And it's just as long as it's different teachers have different rules, but I think as long as it's pretty standard, it should be fine. You could also do, lines 24 to 25 here, but what if the words went all the way out? So this is normally pretty standard. So you want to introduce. So let's write this. We're going to introduce the quote. And then we're going to state the quote. Or quote the quote, essentially. And then discuss the quote. Discuss the quote and support the thesis. Remember, that quote has to support the thesis. So we're going to introduce the quote and then hook to previous paragraph if you could. So hook to previous paragraph. It's called a transition sentence. All right, so here we go. So, you could just say early in the poem. Early in the poem. Because it's in chronological order, so you don't have as much pressure to connect. Also, from the first introduction to the first body paragraph, you don't necessarily need as many, perfect hooks. Most teachers will cut you a little bit of slack, especially that first paragraph, especially if you're talking about chronology. You're like, oh, these lines in chronological order. Early in the poem, early in the poem, we see. We could say we could just make sure to be consistent, right? If you say we or the reader, or you could say, or you just don't even mention we. You could say the speaker. So now let's just talk about the speaker, or Whitman's speaker. I would say the speaker. You don't want to keep stating the author's name over and over and over again. So the speaker. The speaker relays. Relays the connectivity, the connectedness, of Manhattan's people. And let's also look at Manhattan. Yeah, well, Manhattan. Line 5. So we can mention that. Connectedness of Manhattan's people. emphasizes or illustrates the connectedness of Manhattan's people by exclaiming that these people leapt from the houses and the workshops, as opposed to leaping from their houses and their workshops. This subtle word choice, ding, 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 right? We've got the connectedness, Manhattan's people, which talks about bringing people together collectively, actively, toward a something common goal. But also word choice. We're talking about line breaks, personification, word choice. This subtle word choice this subtle word choice strengthens the bonds between, you could say, this seems to highlight the bonds between the city's people. Well, let's use the quote. The city's citizens, the city's people. Let's say Manhattan's masses, and then let's use people down here. And then we could fix it. We could always revise it. But some of these people left from the houses. This word choice. Okay, so now we can make it even clearer. This word choice. And we could even change the word selection. This word choice of, or you could say the choice, Whitman's choice of using the instead of their here seems to highlight the bond between the city's people while also minimizing the individuality, the ownership that is the hallmark of a society built around individuals, built largely around individuals and individual progress. The ownership trait, the ownership, minimizing the ownership. We can fix this, but we might tweak a word or two, but it sort of makes sense right now. Using the instead of they're here in line. So then we go back. Okay, so here we're going to cut this out, and we're going to put this after the quote, right? Okay. by speakers connected to magnetic axis by writing the following, like that, right? Early in the poem, we talked about chronological order, so it's going to be earlier, then later, and then later, and then later. Obviously, we're going to use, different tools other than just chronology, but there it is. The speaker seems to excitedly exclaim that these people leapt from the houses, and the workshops, as opposed to leaping from their houses and their workshops. Women's choice of using the instead of their in lines. I don't want to say the instead of their here. So let's say here in front. Let's say here. Women's choice of using the instead of their seems to highlight the bonds between the city's people, between the city's people, among the city's people. Between is two, among is usually more than two. Among the city's people, while also minimizing the ownership trait or factor, the ownership, I don't know, the ownership is sort of a trait that is the hallmark or factor. That's the hallmark of a society built around individuals and individual progress. The speaker even adds that they leapt through all the doorways. That leapt they through all the doorways. Which clearly demonstrates that, here we can say he or she, supports, which clearly demonstrates, or you could say the poems, which clearly demonstrates the poem's emphasis on the total collectiveness. So now let's look at did we say collectiveness, connectedness? Community inspiring, yeah. Collective, on the total collectiveness, and the total, on the truly aspect that this war brings. Who are now themselves arming. Okay, as opposed to leading from their houses and their workshops. Here, Whitman's choice of using the instead of their seems to highlight the bonds among the city's people while also minimizing the ownership trait. The ownership the ownership I can use aspect again. Let's put this here. And then you wanna really drive it home. This is one thing that a lot of students don't do, and I always remind them to do. And this is I had to work on this, from a very young age, and just keep working on it. But it's just you got to keep driving it home, and you're only going to get better. Keep working on it. So just you want to drive it home. So then, yeah, we'll talk about that in the next video. But that's really important. So drive the point home. Make it very clear and be specific. Okay, thank you very much.